Hey everyone, it's Don with Don's Field of Dreams cards, bringing back a old series of mine called Negro League Players Who Played in the Major Leagues. And if you hadn't watched my channel before about a year ago, which was the last time I did one of these, you may not have seen this series. And the six players you see in front of you, I've already done videos of what little I could find about their Negro League career and their Major League career and anything else that I might find interesting. So it's been over a year since I've made one of these videos, and my goal this year was to get started and making one a month starting in January. Well, it's now June, and I'm a little behind, but love this series. Man, it really teaches me a lot about these players. And for you guys who haven't seen those other videos, I'm not focusing on Ernie Banks, Willie Mays, Hank Aaron, Jackie Robinson. You guys all know about those guys. I'm picking guys that you may never have heard of. And what's cool is these guys have cool nicknames and cool stories. And actually, with Sam Jethro and Connie Johnson, I've actually had relatives of theirs post comments on my videos, and I've tried interacting with them, hoping to get in touch, but I've never got a response. But just real quick, hey, I was looking for my uncle or my grandfather, on YouTube, and your video of them popped up. So I thought that was really cool that family members got to enjoy it. So let's get back to this series. And today, number 7 in the list is going to be Gene Baker. Now, Eugene Walker Baker was a Major League Baseball infielder who played for the Chicago Cubs and Pittsburgh Pirates during 8 seasons between 1953 and 1961. And he was selected in the National League team in the 1955 All-Star Game. So near the end of the 53 baseball season, 2 young men joined the Chicago Cubs and broke the club's killer line. 2 shortstops. They became roommates, and the first African-American Keystone combination in Major League history. One of them was converted into a second baseman. The one that remained at shortstop was Ernie Banks. The other shortstop, who was converted to second base, was Gene Baker. Gene was born on June 15, 1925 in Davenport, Iowa. And he attended high school attended Davenport High School, where he started in track and basketball, as there happened to be no blacks on the high school baseball team. So Gene played sandlot ball. And Davenport was a perennial powerhouse in Iowa high school basketball, which was the most popular sport in the state. Baker was a star on the basketball court, and right after high school, Gene enlisted in the U.S. Navy and served there from 1943 to 1946, where he played baseball and basketball. After the service, Gene returned to Davenport, Iowa, and was playing semi-pro ball. His talent caught the eye of the Kansas City Monarchs. He was their starting shortstop in 1948 and 1949. Early in the 1949 season, the Davin Democrat and Leader newspaper wrote, "Among the Kansas City Monarch stars is Gene Baker, Davenport High School graduate who sparkled as a rookie shortstop last season." In his second year, Baker is set to make his bid for notice from the Major League Scouts. He was told last year that he would get attention after 1 year's service in the Negro American League. So Gene played 1 year, I guess parts of 48 and 49, but not really one complete year, with the Kansas City Monarchs, and his totals were 53 games played, 49 hits, 4 home runs, 29 RBIs, 7 stolen bases, and a .240 batting average. So in 1950, the Chicago Cubs hired Whit Matthews as their new general manager. And Matthews was hailed as a forward-thinking progressive that would lead the Cubs back to relevance. His credentials were pretty good. He had served as Branch Rickey's assistant in Brooklyn and had scouted and helped sign Jackie Robinson. However, the original scouting report seemed to be lost, and it appears that the Dodgers signed Robinson over Matthews' objections, not because of his recommendation. And Roy Campanello is quoted as saying that the Dodgers failed to sign Willie Mays because of a Matthews negative scouting report. But Matthews did have connections with the Kansas City Monarchs from his days in Brooklyn, and he signed Baker in 1950 on the recommendations of the Monarchs' white owner. The 25-year-old Baker then became the first African-American with a real shot of playing for the Cubs. I forget who it was. They signed somebody else, but I don't know if he ever played for the Cubs or not. So at the end of June, he was moved up to the Los Angeles Angels in the AAA Pacific Coast League. And California newspapers reported that the 25-year-old shortstop was regarded as one of the most promising players in the Cubs farm system. Bobby Bragan, manager of the Angels' chief rivals, the Hollywood Stars, said Baker's was as good a shortstop as I've ever seen, and that includes Pee Wee Reese. So Baker lived up to that promise. On September 1st, 1953, the Cubs purchased his contract from the Angels. It was reported that Baker was the first Negro player to ever appear on the Cubs' official roster. Oh, I'm not sure Banks might have played before he did. But a week later, the Cubs also purchased Ernie Banks from the Kansas City Monarchs, but just not sure which one played first. And so they both reported to Chicago on September 14th, and Banks became the regular shortstop, and suddenly Baker was the second baseman. And he made his major league debut on September 20th, striking out as a pinch hitter in the eighth inning of the Cubs' 11-8 loss in St. Louis. So although Baker, in the minor leagues had been hailed as the best shortstop in the Pacific Coast League, he was switched over to second base because it was believed that being older and more experienced than Banks, he might be able to adjust better than a new position than Ernie Banks would. So Baker hit .275 in 135 games during his rookie season, and both he and Banks made the Sporting News Rookie All-Star team. Soon, newspapers ceased mentioning Baker's race whenever his name appeared in print. And Gene's best season came in 1955 when he hit .268, led the league with 18 sacrifices. He was named to the National League All-Star team. He pinch hit for Don Newcomb in the seventh inning and flew out. On May 1st, 1957, Baker was traded along with first baseman Dee Fondy to Pittsburgh for infielder Dale Long and outfielder Lee Walls. There was really no chance he was going to play second base for the Pirates with future Hall of Famer Bill Mazeroski at second, so Baker played mainly third base for the Pirates. He played his last major league game on June 10th, 1961. On June 20th, he was released, but not before he got something that Banks never did, a World Series ring with the 1960 Pirates. He pinch hit 3 times in the 60 World Series, going 0 for 3. But the Pirates kept the promise that there would always be room in the organization for Baker. On the same day he was released, he was named player manager of the Batavia Pirates of the Class D New York, Pennsylvania League. In 1963, Baker was again back in the big leagues as a coach for Pittsburgh, the second African-American to coach in the majors behind Buck O'Neil. Sports writer Red Smith wrote that Baker snores like a locomotive coming over Crazy Woman Ridge. Baker was assigned Roberto Clemente as his roommate, much to the outfielder's chagrin. With this coach, I could not sleep at all. I keep asking them to let me sleep alone, but they say no, can't do it. All I could do is warm up and play, always sleepy, no pep. One game in Milwaukee, they brushed me back at the plate. To brush back a player, you can wake him up. They brushed me back and I felt good, loose. I hit .320 for the year, and now I sleep alone. In a game in Los Angeles on September 21st, 1963, Baker made baseball history. An argument ensued when a Pirates batter was retired on a close play. Pittsburgh manager Danny Murtaugh and coach Frank Osick were ejected after their long and loud protests of the call. According to the Pirates pitcher Vern Law, Murtaugh told Baker he was in charge. Baker asked, "Are you sure?" And Murtaugh said yes, and left the Dodger Stadium clubhouse. Murtaugh may not have ever been aware that he was making history. Baker assumed command and became the first African American to manage in the major league. What's remarkable is that almost no one seems to notice that Baker was running the club at the time. No announcements were made to the press box about who was in charge of the team after manager ejection. The game was almost certainly wasn't televised, and it appears that neither of the two Hall of Fame broadcasters covering the game, Vin Scully and Bob Prince, noticed it, or at least they didn't comment on it. The Pittsburgh papers also made no mention of the incident, but these were the days when games on the West Coast would have been listed as late game in the next day's paper. When the Post-Gazette did report on the game, they simply said that Murtaugh had been ejected for the first time all season. This feat may never have been remembered except for one paper. The Independent Press Telegram of Long Beach published this the next day. Manager Danny Murtaugh and coach Frank Osick were ejected by umpire Doug Harvey for the long and loud protest of a close call. Coach Gene Baker assumed command and became the first Negro to manage in the major leagues. course, he only acted briefly as a manager, so his accomplishments is not listed in most record books. As we all know, that goes to Frank Robinson. So another managerial stint came his way, and he was appointed manager of the Aguilas Sabanas Club, which represented Santiago in the Dominican Republic Winter League. Several Pirates and Clubhouse Jets players were on the Santiago team. Meanwhile, back in Pittsburgh, Murtaugh decided to reduce his coaching staff from 6 to 4. Baker was dropped as a coach, and it was announced that he would manage Batavia again in 1964. After one season in upstate New York, he became a scout for the Pirates and stayed in that role for many years. For 23 years, he was the chief scout in the Midwest. He was quoted as saying, "Arms and legs, that's what I'm looking for. I see as many as 6 teams a day when I'm in an area where night ball is played. I watch perhaps 75% high schools and 25% colleges. Sure, I see a lot of guys who can never make it, but you have to see them all to find the great one." Eugene Walker Baker died of a heart attack on December 1st, 1999, at the age of 74. He had been hospitalized at Genesis East Medical Center in Davenport for 3 days. He was buried in the Rock Island National Cemetery, just across the Mississippi River from his beloved hometown. As always, guys, thanks for watching my video, and I'll talk to you soon.